Hello YouTube, my name is Descentium. In this commentary, we'll be explaining why Battlefield 1 justifies itself as an entry in its own franchise because of the experiences that it offers. Now, the reason why I need to explain this in the first place is because there was a lot of people in the Battlefield community that were worried about Battlefield 1 being another fail produced by EA like Battlefield Hardline and Star Wars Battlefront. And for good reason. Those titles were not on par with what we expected in our Battlefield and Battlefront games. Now, before we talk about why Battlefield 1 is a good entry into the franchise, we need to first talk about why people were scared that Battlefield 1 would be, and I quote, a cocky duty reskin, like Hardline, or just an unbalanced, low skill gap mess that was Battlefront. First, I would like to talk about Battlefield Hardline. This was a failure because it did not justify itself as a game in its own franchise. Usually when a sequel to a game comes out, it adds something meaningful that adds to the experience, like Levolution for Battlefield 4. You know, they added that after Battlefield 3. It was a meaningful change that justified Battlefield 4 as a new entry, not takes away. Although Battlefield Hardline added 3 unique game modes, it did not add enough to justify itself. It did not add enough to the table to justify itself. It removed a lot of stuff like tanks, jets, and meaningful destruction, and crap weapon balance, which were big parts of the overall Battlefield meta. I think people would be fine with removing that, all that stuff, other than weapon balance, if Battlefield Hardline actually added mechanics and features that were unique and innovative other than updated hit markers and minimap. What Battlefield Hardline was supposed to do was make Battlefield more fast-paced, and it succeeded, kinda. You see, Battlefield Hardline made the game more fast-paced on some maps like Riptide, Hollywood Heights, and The Block, but those maps were complete mayhem, such as the entire map of The Block and the mansions in the 2 other that I mentioned, 2 other maps, Hollywood Heights and Riptide. Now, Grow House and Paint Job are good maps that are more fast-paced than previous titles because they were well-designed, but the other 3 maps that I just mentioned were just senseless mayhem, complete violence, senseless violence like Lockers and Metro from the past games. The rest of the maps, in that game were just too big and felt like either Battlefield 4 or less than in the pace department. Now, to wrap this game up, Battlefield Hardline took out a lot of stuff from Battlefield, such as tanks and meaningful destruction, which, mind you, were a big part of the strategy or meta of Battlefield, and did not add enough to the table to warrant its existence. And to the stuff that they did pull out, and even the stuff they changed, such as a decrease to the time to kill and crap weapon balance, just reduced the skill gap for a dull experience. Now, Battlefront. Just jumping right into this game here, this game just simplified and watered down the entire Battlefield experience. I mean, the first thing, the randomness of the power-up system. This was a complete fail by DICE. I mean, the game looked amazing, and just the power-ups just looked really silly. But, in older Battlefields, including Hardline, if I wanted to fly in a helicopter that, when I wake up, want to play in a helicopter, I can play as a helicopter whenever I want. I can't in Battlefront. I can't do that, because I have to get lucky with the power-up system, and they're spawn randomly, and each one is completely different. I might get a hero power-up, or I might get a flippin' thermite grenade. One offers a completely different experience than the other, and I just cannot tell which one it is, And the insane hipfire spread, combined with no incentive to go for headshots. The gameplay was completely watered down. I mean, there was no incentive to go to headshots, and just complete 100% perfect accuracy with all the guns. So they all felt the same, they just all felt the same, except, different fire rates and different damage. Now, however, they added a couple new guns that were actually, good. They actually, had some unique things, like when you hold left trigger, it becomes a one-hit sniper rifle, and this weird-looking pistol, and a cool, fast-firing LMG that shoots electric bolts. And thank goodness those are free, but too little too late. The game came with 11 weapons, which was pathetic. And the insane radar. typically in a Battlefield game, other than the mini-map, is a good way to find your enemies is using sound, you know, the epic sound design. You can hear bullets flying behind you, then you know someone's behind you, so you'd rush to cover, turn around, and actually kill them. In Battlefront, there was no need to actually, you know, listen to what was going on. All you had to do was look down at your radar. Oh, there's a guy behind me, or there's a guy in front of me, from like hundreds of meters away. Like, it literally just had a little red bar that's like, yeah, go this way. Just took the thought of the entire game. Really, you know, nothing there. No depth in the game at all. And lastly, probably the most important thing that they completely mucked up was in Battlefront, there was no meaningful experiences to gain in that game other than picking up a power-up and racking up kills. Now Battlefield 1. DICE's chance to completely blow us away with new experiences and new stories to tell. And does it do this? Well, kind of. The thing is, Battlefield 1 offers a new experience through the World War setting. Biplanes with tank shells and tanks with flamethrowers. All this, you know, a lot of stuff can happen in a huge, beautiful maps that's completely destructible and full of tons of vintage weapons and vintage vehicles. It's very unique. Battlefield 1 still has that Battlefield feel and experience. The thing is, Battlefield had this perfect balance, which with each class of vehicle in like 3 and 4, mainly talking about 3 and 4, such as, and I'm talking about the, you know, classes of vehicles that all interact with each other, the jets, the helicopters, the tanks, the Amtraks, the MRAPs, and with Battlefield 4, the attack boats and the rib boats. Now, there are other vehicles in the game, but these were the main ones, the big ones that actually changed the gameplay. And all of these vehicles worked in harmony and, you know, countered each other. And with each vehicle, differentiated itself from all the others. The tank felt nothing like the Amtrak, and the Amtrak felt nothing like the anti-air tank. And they're all labeled as tanks, you know, they're just different variants of each other. Each vehicle offering a completely unique experience. Battlefield 3 and 4 followed this rock, paper, scissors balance religiously. And what I mean by the rock, paper, scissors balance mentality is basically jets counter helicopters, attack helicopters counter tanks, scout helicopters, tanks, and light tanks wreck infantry. Now, it's not to say that a tank can't destroy an attack helicopter, because the attack helicopter counters a tank. This is not the case. This is just the balance that DICE put in the game. It is easier to take out a tank with an attack helicopter, but it's not impossible for a tank to take out that helicopter. Now that I've briefly explained the balance of Battlefield 3 and 4 and its meta, it's time to talk about Battlefield 1 and why it is different. Because Battlefield 1 doesn't have super fast jets, helicopters, anti-air tanks, the game feels drastically different. Let me put it this way. The balance, the meta, whatever you want to call it, is completely different from Battlefield 3 and 4. And because of this, I hated it. I completely hated it. For the first few hours of playing, I just didn't get it. I was like, oh, this flippin' blows, and it really ruined my hype for the beginning. But once I figured, because I was trying to play the game like Battlefield 3 and 4, but you're not supposed to. Once I figured that out, it clicked. I turned around my entire opinion about the experience, and you're probably confused because I said earlier that it has the same feel, and it does. It's just the different in the balance. Now, let me explain. Rock, paper, scissors balance is still there, but it is quite blurred. Biplanes can take out tanks, but it has to have the right weapons. Tanks can take out planes if you're a good shot, along with infantry, but then infantry, mainly the assault, can take out tanks, and everybody can peck at planes with any weapon. Now, this is where it gets good. Because the rock, paper, scissors balance is blurred, they bumped up the skill gap significantly across the board. Other than the light tank, which they are nerfing. Thank God. That thing was completely overpowered and completely broken. But as a bigger tank, you have to work together as a cohesive unit to be at all effective. The tank-on-tank battles are a lot more strategic because there's no engineer. You know, it takes a lot more skill. You can't just have someone sit behind you and repair you, so you can easily win that battle. And that does have its own strategic value, having someone jump on the back and you have your teammates behind you sniping the other medic, or not the other engineers, you know, that has its own appeal. Battlefield 1 has a more skill-based gunplay emphasis, not gunplay, but like with the tank battles, it has more of a skill, and, you know, it takes a bit more skill to pull off, you know, because you got to work together with your teammates. And, you know, it's quite difficult, you know, all the you can repair your tank without having to get out of it, as the new classes that they added, like the tank class. And to get out, sometimes you can try to retreat, and it's really difficult because if you try to repair in the middle of a fight, you're sitting duck and you get screwed. So you got to try to retreat. You know, it takes a lot more skill. And if you do retreat and you do try to repair, you know, the guy can try to outflank you and blow the flipping cover up, so their assault players can get in, and it's got a really awesome feel to it. And also the air combat is a lot different. Instead of locking onto a tank as a jet, taking pot shots at him a couple of times to take him out, you either have to perfectly time a bombing run, or you have the sick anti-tank rounds in a biplane. It feels amazing, which does not lock on at all, and it takes a lot of accuracy to pull off. Now, in previous titles, you had the J-Dam bomb, so you can drop it. It took a lot of skill to pull off, but most players use the anti-tank weapons in the jet. So, you know, you just press Y, you get in this weird little screen, and you get to lock on people. I mean, it was fun, you know, it worked out, but it worked for that game. But, you know, in World War I, you actually didn't have that kind of stuff, so they had to get creative, and I think it works out. And all those, you know, take a lot more skill. And just infantry, fighting infantry, just, you know, like, let's just say you're playing TDM, for instance, you know, it just takes a lot more gun skill in past games. All the weapons in the game are slightly less effective than, let's just say, Battlefield 4, while having an incentive to go for headshots. A lot of the weapons are using iron sights, and you know, now, and mind you, not all of them are using iron sights, you know, some of them have scopes. But you have to get used to it and try to, you know, get yourself adjusted to it, and it takes a lot more accuracy to, you know, aim with a clunky metal thing than it does to, you know, have a nice perfect red dot sight. You know, the mini-map is not as effective as it used to be, resulting in people looking at their surroundings instead of just staring at the mini-map. And unfortunately, I will not be able to talk about the behemoth vehicles like the train and the blimp, but they add a whole new dimension to the formula, and I think it's a big step in the right direction to changing it up and innovating in a right way that Hardline didn't. And all of these things, other than the minimap changes, you can get better at. You know, you have to learn more and more. It has a wide skill gap. In Battlefield 1, it's less about the thinking, strategic, you know, kind of chess side of things of Battlefield, and more of the good gameplay skill required. But yet, it has the, you know, it can have those strategic moments, and that still is an effective way to play. Like the land ship, for example, and the multi-seated planes. And, I hope you understood what I was trying to say in this video, and I hope you appreciate the new style of Battlefield as much as I do. And I would like to hear what you guys have to think, and I, you know, want to know if you guys agree with me. Just let me know in the comments. And, yeah, just leave a like, subscribe, and I'll thank you guys for sitting through me. Alright.